Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Elevating Your Life. I am sitting here with just an amazing gentleman and author. I'm happy to share with you today Patrick Marando. He is an author, spiritual teacher, and psychologist from Sydney, Australia, with over 20 years of experience. His spiritual teachings revolve around awakening to the truth of reality and bridging the gap between spirituality and psychology, and focusing on living from that state of the true self. He had his first awakening experience at the age of 28, and many of his teachings come from his own experiences with the truth. He has written a play about his own spiritual awakening journey and is in the process of bringing it to production and acting and singing in it. The play is entitled Enlighten Me. He is the author of this fantastic book, Waking Up to Yourself, A Guide to Living Your Truth. And I absolutely loved your book, Patrick. It was great. And I'm just so happy to have you joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate it. It was like such a great welcoming to me. I feel a little bit
Yeah.
humbled about all the things you said.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, tell us if you'd like to share a little more of your background and kind of what brought you to writing your book. And you've said that you actually lived the waking up to yourself as you wrote it. So please share
Mm.
some of that with us.
Yeah, so my background is firstly as a psychologist. So I started studying straight from after school. So I think I was still 17 when I started studying psychology, and I got into the world of psychology pretty strongly and pretty quickly. And and probably about 3 years into my study, I started a Kung Fu program. And Kung Fu was really based around a lot of Taoist philosophies. And so we spoke a lot about Taoism, we spoke a lot about Qi and Qi energy, and that sort of got me into the spiritual world a little bit. And from that, I started just meeting a few more spiritual people, and I heard about the concept of enlightenment. And from that, I just felt like something went off in my mind, and I said, I have to follow this. I've got no choice but to follow this. It just sounded too amazing not to follow. And just from there, I sort of devoured every book and every video that I could find on enlightenment. And that was probably about a good 6 years of doing that. And then when I was about 28, I was on a train in Italy to Milan, and I was reading a book from a spiritual enlightened teacher. And just as I was reading it, I sort of the words just really resonated with me, and I just had my first awakening experience. So I was sort of woke up to the truth of my being, to my essence, to my spirit or my soul. And from that, it was just transformational, completely transformational in my life. And then from there, like I had that experience, but then I had to sort of learn how to live that awakened state. And that's where the book came in. So me living the book was actually learning how to live the awakened state and getting out of my conditioned mind. And so I just sort of journaled it as I did it. And as I journaled it, I wrote it. And as I wrote it, I journaled it. So
Yeah.
it sort of just, they both bounced off each other.
So as you experience these new feelings and perceptions and concepts, you journal them and wrote them down
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
piece them all in your fantastic book. I love it.
Yeah, completely. And struggled with each and every one of them. Like every mistake that I say not to do in the book, I've done all of them. So that's really how I learned them all.
Yeah, yeah. And life is a path, isn't it?
Yeah, completely a path. And for me, it was really always about the destination, and me was actually getting on board the path and getting on board, just doing that at any given moment, not just achieving I'm enlightened and I'll stay there.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people, a lot is talked about our true self.
Hmm.
How do you describe our true self, our inner self?
Yeah. So I described three different parts of ourselves. So I described like our raw self, which is like our animalistic version or our innate biology. And then I describe our conditioned self, which is all the conditioning, and people often call that the ego. And then I call the true self, which is our spirit or our soul slash awareness. A lot of people use different words for that. So Buddha nature is another word, or Christ consciousness. And connecting to that part of ourselves, it actually has a subtle essence and a subtle call and intelligence that's motivating us towards doing certain things in our life. And generally living from that part of us is going to bring us peace and well-being, but also bring us a fulfilling life as we follow those gentle urges, and we call it the gentle calling of the true self.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And something you've said in your book, the true self is wise beyond belief. It
Yeah,
knows us better than our mind knows us, and it
that's right.
exists in the moment. Oh, I just love
Mhm.
that. That's powerful words, Patrick.
Yeah, yeah, and for me, like it's really hard to do the true self justice in words, but words is all we have, because really the true self is infinite wisdom, and it's infinite wisdom knows everything about everything, and we don't have to personally know everything about everything, but if we can just trust that and trust and follow that each time, then it will lead us to that life of peace and well-being, like I mentioned.
Oh, isn't that amazing? And isn't that beautiful and exciting?
Yeah, completely exciting. And for me, it happens deeper and deeper every day. So it's not like I've achieved a state and now I stay there. It's I connect deeper and deeper and I practice it more and more and work through my egoic traps more and more.
Yes. Well, share a bit about, what our raw self is. You
Yeah,
discussed that and where that
yeah,
plays in our lives.
yeah. So our raw self is like our animalistic self. So it's sort of looking after our basic needs and it's looking after our evolutionary parts of us that used to serve us, but maybe not so required now. So, say the desire to feel really accepted. In the past, when we were sort of more herd or village type mentality, being rejected would mean we're outcast, and being outcast means our life is more at threat. So we developed this part of us that really wants to be accepted and fit in order to save us. So that's more from our raw self. Then that can get reinforced through our egoic self, and our egoic self is like, I just really need that just to feel okay and to be okay with myself. But in terms of our life now, most of us don't need to be accepted to survive anymore. So we don't need to necessarily follow that raw part of us in that scenario. And we've got them for each emotion as well. So it could be things like feeling um, lonely. So lonely again would minimize our chances of procreating or minimize our chances of survival because we don't have those people around us. And so we all have that animalistic part of us, but we can sort of transcend that and also utilize it when it serves us too.
Oh, I love that. And something you mentioned that I thought was just so fantastic. Disappointment is designed as a teacher to help us
Yeah.
reflect on what went wrong and try to learn from it. That is a powerful statement.
Yeah. Like it's, and again, like everything I've learned is I had to work. It's good to sort of know all these things logically, but doing them is another story. Because disappointment, sometimes it's about learning from it, which is that's what it's there for. It's there to stop us. It's there to feel like enough discomfort to kind of say, let's stop and reflect. And sometimes we can reflect and not need to learn anything because we're human. We're going to make mistakes. We're fallible. And sometimes it's about learning, but then we want to look at how do I try to teach myself. So
Uh,
a lot of us have learned to teach ourselves like in a really critical, harsh way, whereas the true self will always be gently encouraging, motivating, forgiving. It won't ever beat us up. It's always about the movement and moving forward.
yeah. So would you say when we're feeling disappointed in something we can look at that and what can I learn from this?
Yeah,
What can
that's right. Yeah,
I,
what would I like to do different? What
yeah.
why did I do what I did in the first place? So it's really
Ah,
gaining a deeper understanding. And even that, like for me personally, when I speak to a lot of people, they've tried many things and they failed at them. That's why they're still struggling. But it's from their disappointment that's motivated them to seek and do more and to try to learn more. So the disappointment is like a really good ally, not necessarily a friend, but a good ally to help us progress our life and progress our connection to ourselves or our truth.
yeah. When you were going through your journey of waking up to yourself, did you have one or two particular things that kind of just were a wow moment for you that
Yeah,
really,
I had a fair
really
few. Yeah,
changed?
I was generally someone who was pretty stoic most of my life. So pretty logical. Pretty. My emotional range was probably like that big. So for me, I wouldn't really have that many emotions. But as I was going on and got further into this, my emotional range like really grew. But it really meant I went down to a lot more of the lowest of the lows. And so I was never really an angry person in particular, but me, when I was really noticing that I got angry, I had this moment where I realized actually I'm not really angry. I'm actually really sad. anger just really masking my sadness here. And and from there, it sort of really opened the floodgates to me understanding like the difference between sort of a primary emotion and a resistance or secondary emotion. And the more I'm okay to feel sad and grieve through that, the less angry that I have to become. So that was a really big one that really stands out, that one in particular.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. So what would you say are the greatest benefits of combining the spirituality and the psychology? And
Yeah.
maybe some tools on how we can do more of that.
So I think if you look at, say, for me, spirituality is just an awareness of the true nature of existence, which is also part of the true nature of myself. So that really, when you talk about self, then I talk about sort of our mind, our emotions, our body, and our spiritual part of us, our energetic self. Psychology in particular, like generally talks about the mind and the emotions. So I think anything that helps with the mind and the emotions and help us to connect to a state of peace, which is like changing our thinking patterns, being more aligned with how our truth sees the world. I think anything that helps us do that is really is useful, whether it's psychology or spirituality. I think overall, the more we can connect to our spirit, though, that gives us more of a like it's like our true north. So we have a point to refer back to find our peace, rather than psychology. Sometimes it's about discovering peace. We're
Mhm.
actually talking about rediscovering our peace. It's already there. We
Already
don't
there.
have to create it. We just want to find where it is within us and how we keep ourselves from it.
Yeah. So basically, it's just reconnecting because it's
Mhm.
there and hasn't gone anywhere, correct?
Completely that, yes, completely reconnecting and reconnecting on deeper and deeper levels. We just sort of have learnt to pinch ourselves off from it through our lessons in our lives, and from those before us, because they were pinched off from it, they didn't know any better either. And really, the more sort of emotional pain we feel, the more that actually can motivate us to finding peace and like a deeper connection to our truth.
Wow. Yeah. It really is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. Like for me, I still get fascinated by it, and I still get excited by it. And when I'm working with my clients as well, I sort of sometimes I get too excited that I have to calm myself down, that they don't think I'm happy that they're in pain. It's part of it is recognize. I just see the opportunity that the pain is offering them to connect to their truth. So I sometimes get excited at that.
Yeah. Because, and you know, that's, part of life, isn't it? Having pain, having challenges. But to
Mm,
know that that can actually benefit us
yeah,
in what we can learn and how we can connect. And
yeah, completely. And really, the pain's generally telling us, like we are going to have pain just from our raw self. That's normal. When we get stuck in pain, that's really telling us our belief patterns don't match how our true self is seeing things. Our belief patterns aren't matching the perspective of the true self. And that is our opportunity to shift our perspective to that more aligned with the true self. And the more we can do that, the less we then recreate our own pain.
wow. So, what would you say are some good first steps to align with our true self, to go more in that direction?
Yeah, the first step that I started with is really meditation. So, so really sitting in meditation, even if you're not very good at it. So very good at it is a bit tricky because people think they have to silence their mind. It's not really about that. But the more you can sit in stillness and again and again and again, that is actually sitting with connection with your true self, even if you're not consciously aware of that. So that would be the first one, even if it's just like a few minutes a day, just practicing that. I think also doing like a conscious breath. So in waking up to yourself, I talk a bit about something called the true self breath. And so it's really just a conscious breath to connect to your truth at any given moment, particularly when you're emotional as well. That would be usually when we're emotional is the most likely time we're pinched off or more disconnected from our truth. So that would be ones, and it's really just like using those small opportunities of being aware of when I am feeling bad to kind of reconnect again. Because again, like I said, is that when we are feeling those emotions, we're less likely connected. So I practice this like in traffic. If I'm stuck in traffic and I get annoyed or aggravated, I say, all right, yes, yes, that's what my ego is saying. What is my true self saying about this? How does this want to deal with this scenario?
Yes, yes. And something as simple as just some breath and
Mm,
relaxing can
yeah.
kind of help us through that, can it?
Yeah, completely. Because like I mentioned, and you mentioned as well, is that the true self exists right here in the moment, and the breath is a really good anchor to the moment. Our mind's willing to take us to the future, to the past, lost in judgment. So being in the breath and focused on the breath really brings us back to here and now.
Yeah, I love that. And everything is in the here and now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's we're always living in the here and now, but everything else is in the mind.
Because we can get so caught up in, well, what happened before and
Yeah,
what's going to happen tomorrow, and we can get so
yeah,
caught up in that when
that's right.
the
Yeah, and the
moment
moment we
is
get
the
caught up,
moment.
that's right. Yeah, and the reason we get caught up in those things is because we're actually caught up and hung up on our emotional states. So, so for me, if I say I feel really uncertain, my mind wants to go to the future a lot because it feels really uncertain. It wants to control that. It wants to solve my uncertainty. But the more I'm okay with uncertainty, the less my mind has to go to the future. In terms of
Gotcha.
the past, I might be stuck there because I'm stuck in a disappointment or guilt. So I'm stuck in berating or trying to learn in a negative, critical way rather than, yes, that happened and I do feel disappointed, but I'm willing to move forward. So our mind usually goes to those places as an emotional response, not necessarily as a true self response.
Oh, wow. And I mean, there's such a variety of emotions that we can feel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they're all useful. They're pleasant and unpleasant. They're all useful tools, all of them. It's just knowing how to utilize them better. And that's really why I wrote the book, Waking Up to Yourself, is for me, like I had like a bit of a logical awareness of this, but in particular, I wrote it because of I've seen people and myself struggle so much with emotions and just wanting to eliminate all the negative ones and stay only in the pleasant ones. But the more I realize this, the more I actually realize that the unpleasant ones actually really serve a purpose and they are useful just as much as the more pleasant ones. And
Wow.
that's why I don't call them negative or positive generally. I just call them more pleasant or unpleasant because even the unpleasant can have a positive experience attached to them.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh. That is so wonderful to know, Patrick.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was wonderful for me to discover, I have to tell you. So even for myself, it did make the journey a little easier when I understood that.
Yes. And something I thought was so cool, that I'd love you to share. You wrote about the loneliness emotion that
Mm,
you were traveling on your own in Japan and found yourself feeling the loneliest you had ever felt while being in Tokyo. Tell us about
yeah.
that.
Yeah, so I've done a fair bit of travel, but I've always traveled to countries where I could speak the language, or like I traveled to Italy and I can speak Italian, but mostly traveled to English speaking countries. So this was one of my first trips to a country where I didn't actually speak the language, and I traveled alone. So I sort of got there, and it was fine. It was really enjoyable, but then I just started feeling this intense loneliness and not being able to speak the language, not being able to find people to connect to. I sort of went deeper into that loneliness. And for me, then I sort of got a bit angry, and I realized like anger is the secondary response. But because the irony of being in, I think, the second most populated country in the world, a city in the world, and being the most lonely I've ever felt, sort of aggravated me. Irony of that. Yeah. So, so I was sort of in resistance for a little while. Then I was like, well, if I'm going to be lonely, can I just let loneliness be there? Can I not have to solve it? Can I not have to connect from loneliness? Can I just connect to myself instead? And and while I said that, I wanted to make that decision. I sort of made that decision in a gradual way rather than could just do it in that very moment. But when I finally did surrender to that, it was just like a peaceful, serene experience. It was the
Oh,
loneliness didn't bother me anymore. And really since then, whenever loneliness has arisen, it's never bothered me since. It's been there, but it doesn't really actually trigger me. I don't have any unpleasant, unhelpful responses or resistance to it anymore.
wow. Isn't that fantastic? It's almost
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the lonely, emotions can almost kind of, would you say, control us sometimes?
Oh, completely, they
We let
control
we
us. Yeah.
let go of that and take away that control.
Yeah, and it's usually our desire to solve them that controls us. It's our resistance to them that controls us, not the emotion themselves. And so what we can learn more and more is to reduce the resistance more and more and more. And so sometimes I know initially I was more like, just stop the resistance completely. And it just didn't work. So I felt like I was failing all the time rather than just, can I just work on reducing a bit of resistance at this moment if that's all I've got in this moment?
Mhm. Wow, I love it. So many great pathways and tips to
Hmm.
know. And man, you shared so much. And I would love to have you share a little about the play that you've written.
Yeah,
And
sure.
has it been produced or are you working on it?
Yeah, so it's still in production or pre-production, probably we'll say. It's so part of my journey is following my truth, and part of that was me. I realized that I'm someone who usually is a bit quite filtered, so I hold back. So I always liked the idea of acting, so I sort of decided to join some improvisation classes, and and for me that was just fun, but it was also an opportunity to sort of reduce and release my filter. And I just really got a lot of joy out of that. And then I said, well, I'm just going to do some acting classes. So I did some acting classes, and that really helped me connect to my emotional states. Like I mentioned, I was usually quite stoic. So it was just like a simulation or a playful way to actually connect deeper to my emotions. And just from there, I really just got more of a passion for it. And one day I read an article about someone who wrote a play, and I just said, oh, if I had to write a play about my life, then I sort of had it like, it felt like a download, to be honest. So this is what I would talk about. This is what I would write about. And so it sort of just came out from there. And so I just sort of typed it away and wrote it pretty much in a week. Um, but the first draft anyway, yeah. And so since then I've just been editing it and just getting it to a state how I really want to bring it to production and for people to understand it and see it. So it
Oh,
is in the process. I think it'll probably come out more next year. So that's the rough plan, but really at the end of that, I try to follow my truth. So if I feel compelled to do it, then I'll do it. If I don't, then I'll just leave it to the side until I do feel compelled to pick it up again.
oh, that is so exciting. So how can the audience learn more about you and watch for when your play's out and all of that? How can they get a hold of you or learn more about you?
Yeah, so my main platform that I talk on is Instagram, and I also do a bit of TikTok as well. So I'm Patrick Miranda at Patrick Mirando on Instagram, and TikTok is at Patrick Mirando 7. You can also go to www.patrickmirando.com. So I usually put updates of my life there or of what I'm doing there. Mostly though, it's on Instagram is the more up to date and real time things. So that's usually where I do it. I'm actually just opening up I have a psychology practice, but I'm just about to open up my own spiritual center or meditation center. So that's called spirituallyminded.net. So that's also somewhere where you can do that, and I can do individual and one-on-one sessions there as well. So
Oh,
that's just a new part
wonderful.
that's happening right now.
Yeah. So we can come see you and do one-on-one sessions with you. How
Completely,
exciting
yeah.
is that?
And I'm doing them online, in person, over the phone. So whatever suits people. And really, for me, I really do get a passion in helping people connect to their truth, because that's really what we're here for, to connect to that and have that peace.
Yes, yes. And you've said from gaining the wisdom and writing your book, you've become very adept at seeing and hearing when people are disconnected from their truth and able to assist
Mm.
them more.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, so for me, it sort of feels like whenever I talk to particularly a client, I generally I don't try to do this in my day-to-day life because I think it would just be overwhelming for my mind. But generally with a client, I've sort of just got an acuteness of, all right, this is the emotion they're really trying to not feel. This is what we're doing to try to not feel it. And this is like the antidote to learning how to reconnect. And for me, it's like a puzzle that just all the pieces just go into my mind really, really quickly. So I'm not even sure why it works like that, but my mind just sort of puts all the pieces together. And it's like, right, this is what we need here to help direct you closer to your truth in this moment.
Oh,
So, so like I said, when I'm with clients, sometimes I have to hold back my excitement because I do see the opportunity there, not just the pain.
oh, and I can just imagine what that's like with your clients and being able to, help them come closer to their true selves and,
Yeah,
you know, gain positivity where, there might have been negativity. That
completely.
is that is so fantastic, Patrick. All
Yeah,
that you're doing
yeah,
for so many people. I am
yeah.
so
Thanks.
grateful.
I appreciate it. No, but really for me, it's like it's part of my heart's journey and it feels really true to me. So I'm doing something I love and growing the love and the peace in the world at the same time. And because really, even one person having more peace is a more peaceful world. And
Yes,
that's what we can
yes.
all move towards.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Oh, and supporting each other and all of that. It's so wonderful. And your book, Waking Up to Your True Self, is so fantastic. My goodness. Well, we have a few minutes left in the show, Patrick. What last message do you want to give everybody today?
Yeah, I think the main message I'd like to give is that our true self is always there and always available for us to connect to. Is that, and no matter how far we feel from our truth, and no matter how lost we are in pain, the light is always there as a beacon calling us back. So our job is, and our willingness to choose to move towards more peace and choose towards feeling better in general, is that's a choice to move and to connect to our truth. And we always have that choice at any given moment, no matter how dark things seem. And it's not just a one-time thing, but it's doing it again and again and again. And the more you do that, you're actually training your mind to realign back to your truth. And so the hope to connect to peace and well-being, it is there. And it's just really about putting in some concerted effort at times, and sometimes just about being more allowing, and that's really part of the training. But it is at any given moment available to us. And I think it's just really our gift. It's to shine as ourselves. And the more we can do that, the more we shine the whole world.
Uh, and so basically, just if we're having a difficult situation, just kind of relax and say, I want to be my true self, and
Yeah,
let
partly that. Yeah,
something
it's
simple
it's
like
really
that.
understanding. Yeah, that's definitely an intentional part. But part of it is like the real first part is my true self would not resist this emotion I'm in. So yes, I'm feeling this way, and that's okay for now. Then we can maybe say, how does my true self perceive this? Or can I just choose a more peaceful way to look at this scenario? That would definitely be one I'd suggest is, can I choose a more peaceful way to look at this scenario? But one that I can believe. If I don't believe it, it's not going to work. And in waking up to yourself, I talk about lighter perceptions, and that's what that is learning how to do that. So just they're really simple ones, just like being okay with how you feel, but also choosing a different way to perceive.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And as we change those perceptions, that would become more of a norm, wouldn't it? It
That's
would
right.
be
Yeah.
more of a habit, more of a
Yeah.
norm.
That's right. And we're training our mind that we're willing to choose peace no matter what it does. That yes, it's going to have its habits, shine, fine, but I don't have to necessarily go with the habit just because it's there. I'm willing to choose the way of the true self again and again and again and connect deeper and deeper. And choosing peace is doing that.
Oh, what a beautiful message. Oh, Patrick, I am just so grateful to have had you on the show.
I'm
And
really, yeah,
I look forward to keeping an eye on what you're doing and watching for that play. And that is just so amazing. And thank you
I
for
really
all you're
appreciate being
doing for
here.
so many.
And I
And
think
this, yeah,
thank you for spreading the word as well. Like, without you as well, like, people wouldn't find out, and we're all playing our part in
yes,
bringing peace to the world and bringing more light to the world.
yeah.
And I think that's just wonderful for everyone who does that. So thank you.
You're so welcome. Together being a positive energy in the world. Oh,
That's right. Yes.
well, love, hugs, and blessings, Patrick. Everyone out there, thank you for joining us. Love, hugs, and blessings.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Great.